Today's warm-up, we're going to start with some spinal snaking, waving, and coiling. This is where we're going to create segmental control and awareness through the spinal segments, both moving into flexion and extension, side bend, and rotation. As we coil the spine or rotate through it, we're going to emphasize pressing the floor away, protracting the shoulder, and really squeezing that opposite top shoulder up towards the ceiling. This creates a push-pull action at the scapula, but encourages rotation at the thoracic region and lumbar spine. Match your breathing with it. As we coil down, we're going into exhalation, and as we lift up, go to inhalation. Next, we're going to do some wrist preparation. Wrist roll downs onto the backs of the wrists to work on the muscles and tendons and ligaments on the backs of the wrists that tend to get neglected. As you press down, make it active. Don't just fall into the wrist. You're just going to create overstretching the ligaments. Make sure those muscles on the backs of the wrists are actively working the entire time. Adding a little bit of a push-up variation, so isometric, lengthening and strengthening on the posterior wrists. Internally rotating those shoulders, pressing into those fingers, into those wrists, into a different position. If you're doing any kind of hand balancing or gymnastics work, that internally rotated shoulder position is a very strong position to press off of. Next, we're going into some rocking and rolling. So just some backwards rocking all the way up into the seated position, and then adding in some flat spins for a little variety and a little bit of awareness in through the spine and the backside there. Reverse directions. And watching what your breathing is doing. Inhale on the way up, exhale on the way down. Going to some backwards rolls just to stretch out the neck. Clearing out the neck out of the way, coming up into a kneeling position to stretch the hip. So press in, a little hip flexor stretch here. Create that space in between the shoulder and the arm so the head can move freely. Onto some hollow rocking toe touches. So a little bit of a candlestick and then to a full pike toe touch. Again, we're just looking to see, can we lock up the spine and then bend and twist really quickly. Playing with that back roll and candlestick position into a low pistol. And then into our seated 90-90, going to some rotations, following the hand with the eyes, so the eyes and the neck are moving to get that spine to rotate. Onto some slide and reaches, exhaling on the way down, opening up those fascial lines from the thorax to the hips. We'll rotate again, eyes are tracking the thumb as we quickly with that head and vision in space that really activates the brain, and some slide and reaches here. You'll feel a big stretch in through the thorax, outer hip, maybe in the knee. Wherever it's tight, you're going to feel it. Some side leg lifts, get the lateral sling going, onto the stomach, into some Supermans, posterior core. Squeeze everything on the backside to make sure it's working together, not just the spine. Back extensions with an anchored lower body. Onto the other side, get that left lateral core working with the hips. You can press that bottom hand into the floor to add a little bit more stability. That'll also activate the lat in the long position. Some tuck curl ups to quickly snap those abdominals into flexion and extension for some jumping and back flip fun. Now into some leg snaps with a glute bridge. This is going to work on some timing of the hip extension on the bottom leg with hip flexion, because as we jump, as we run, it's always this contralateral hip extension on the push-off leg and the hip flexing on that power leg or that lift leg. And we're just timing it in, making sure that things are kind of working together, coordinated. Long bridge climbers. Got to really lock up those scap retractors, stabilize the shoulders. Wrists are prepared at this point, and we're getting those backside glute muscles, hamstrings, core, all talking and working with one another. And into our single leg downward dog with a little bit of hopping here. Just like the glute bridge, we're working up or popping up into any kind of handstands. We want to make sure the hips are nice and strong and mobile when they're splitting into that front split position. And feeling the glutes, hamstrings, and calves working together so no one tissue is taking the entire load.